What's up everyone, I'm Eldridge, and today we're gonna learn how to not be a donkey in destroyers. Destroyers are the smallest ship type in World of Warships. They're fast, agile, and lightly armored, usually armed with small guns, but equipped with deadly torpedoes. The important controls for a destroyer are: W and S controls your throttle, A and D manually shifts the rudder, Q and E locks the rudder in place, Shift enters sniper mode, P deactivates your anti-aircraft batteries, pressing 1 will reload high explosive rounds after your next salvo, pressing 1 twice in succession will reload high explosive immediately. Pressing 2 will reload armor-piercing rounds after your next salvo, and pressing 2 twice will reload armor-piercing rounds immediately. Pressing 3 will cause you to enter torpedo mode, in which you can aim your torpedoes. Pressing 3 again while in torpedo mode will select the density of your torpedo spread. The number one prerogative for any destroyer captain is to stay alive. You cannot do any damage when you're dead. Getting yourself killed in a destroyer is incredibly easy. So sometimes you just have to play a lot more careful than you would in other ships. Stay back, pepper some enemies with your guns, hide behind islands, pop smoke screens for your buddies, and just bide your time until that opportune moment presents itself. Don't get yourself shot unnecessarily. You don't have a lot of hit points and you have to keep them around for those times when losing them is practically inevitable. But on the other hand, don't be too passive either. Just be a constant annoyance and distraction for your enemies. Right now there are two distinct flavors of destroyers, US Navy and Imperial Japanese Navy. But the premium destroyer Gremiashi gives us a possible idea of what the Soviet destroyers might be like. US destroyers feature high DPM guns, with really good quick turret traverse, making the guns even useful while maneuvering. To pay for this, US destroyers have very short range torpedoes compared to their Japanese counterparts. However, starting from a low tier, US torpedoes also move quite a bit faster through the water, which can make a big difference for enemies trying to dodge your torpedoes. One thing of note, US destroyers in general have slight problems with their acceleration, which, when maneuvering a lot, can drop your speed quite significantly, causing you to slow down and requiring quite a bit of time to get up to speed again. Some of the US destroyers also have slightly lower shell velocities, which makes it harder to aim at longer ranges. When playing a US destroyer, you want to make sure that you use your guns a lot. You can do so much damage with your guns over time that not using them becomes really silly. Harass enemies while staying at your gun's maximum ranges to avoid getting destroyed in return. Bob and weave and evade their shots, but always keep an eye on your throttle to make sure your lousy acceleration doesn't kill you. And while you do all this, keep an eye out for the opportune moment to strike with your torpedoes. Japanese destroyers, on the other hand, have quite bad guns. They are very low DPM because of their slower rate of fire, and they all come with very slow turning turrets. Of course to varying degrees, but always slower turning than the American ships. And it becomes really hard to point your guns at the target while also evading counterfire, which a lot of the time causes it to become a choice between doing a little bit of damage to the enemy and not dying. So most of the time you'll just have to decide not to use your guns because staying alive is just so much more important. Japanese destroyers do have faster acceleration, and all through the tiers they have better rudder shift time and concealment. Which does mean they can sneak in closer without being detected, as long as there's no planes above, of course. But it should also be noted that due to Japanese destroyers being longer than American destroyers, while they shift their rudder quicker, it does take them a little bit longer to actually get going. Whereas US destroyers have worse rudder shift time, they respond to the shift quicker, which makes zigzagging a little bit easier in American destroyers. Japanese destroyers from a very early tier have very long-ranging torpedoes. The shortest ranging Japanese torpedoes are 8 kilometers in range, which goes up all the way to 20 kilometers range at tier 10. That is a very long range, but sadly the cooldowns go up very quickly once you get into tier 6 and higher. When playing Imperial Japanese destroyers, at lower tiers, use your torpedoes to maximum effect. Fire your torpedoes as often as you can, hunt down battleships and slow cruisers. Avoid using your gun unless there's absolutely no danger of you being shot or you really have nothing better to do. At tier 6 and higher, I must honestly say I have no idea what to do in Japanese destroyers. Right now, I personally find them to be quite inferior to US destroyers, past tier 6. And personally, I have switched out of the Japanese destroyers to play the US destroyers instead. The problem is, when your only advantage is torpedoes, and that advantage comes with a 2 to 3 minute long cooldown attached, then you're really not left with a whole lot else to do while you wait for that silly cooldown to go away. This could of course change at a moment's notice, and we'll have to see what Wargaming does in their patches. But I do think of all the branches in the game right now, the Japanese destroyers need quite a bit of help, and they need it the most. There really aren't any amazing tricks to playing a destroyer, it's a lot more about knowing certain tactics. Firstly, let's look at movement and concealment. Proper movement and use of concealment are very important for any ship in the game, but they are so much more important for you as a destroyer captain because of how fragile your ship is. When moving across the map, beware of your surroundings. Don't tunnel vision on enemies, you have to always know where you are in relation to islands and the border of the map, as beaching yourself on an island or getting stuck on a map corner is very likely to get you killed. Plan your movements ahead. If you're about to make an attack run, be aware of where you can go after that attack run. And at all times keep an eye on the map so that you know when planes are close, so that you can see openings that you might be able to exploit, and to see where the greatest concentrations of enemy ships are. Now concealment is a little bit of a tough nut to crack because so many of its mechanics are shrouded in mystery, but it will help you play your destroyer better if you know at what distance other ships will detect you and if you know at what distance planes will detect you. Because avoiding enemy fire is all nice and well, but if they don't see you in the first place, then there's nothing for you to avoid. It just makes your life so much easier. You should also be aware that some destroyers are able to fire their guns at maximum range without being detected. I can't tell you precisely how this works because I haven't seen a formula of it yet, but as a rule of thumb, any destroyer that has 3 to 5 kilometers more range than detectability radius has a good chance of staying concealed while firing the guns at maximum range. Good examples of this are the Mahan, Benson, Sims and Gremiashi. Smokescreens are very important to playing destroyers successfully. Any smokescreen will decrease the detectability radius of ships inside it or behind it. It will also decrease the sight radius of any ship inside of it. When you hit the smoke cover button, you will create a puff of smoke roughly 300 meters in diameter, centered on your ship, and this puff will grow to about 1 kilometer in diameter over a few seconds. This means that while laying a smoke screen, you are not entirely protected by the smoke screen. So if you drive toward an enemy while laying a smoke screen, they will still be able to spot you, if you are in their spotting range. You will create such a puff of smoke for as long as the duration of the smoke lasts, roughly once a second. Which means you can basically draw a smoke trail over the map by just driving straight ahead. This lets you create wide areas of cover for your team in areas that have no cover. It can help you and your teammates set ambushes for the opposing team. It can help you protect cap zones by making it impossible for the opponent to see you and thus interrupt your capping. Or you can just plain old use it to run away. But whatever you do, use your smoke screens and use them wisely. A successful destroyer captain uses his smoke screens not just for his own gain, but also uses them to help out his team. Ambushes can be equally rewarding and life-ending. Since you have to get pretty close, you will put yourself in range of secondary gunfire, and you will also make it a lot easier for any ship to hit you. Only attempt ambushes when you are sure that you are going to kill the target. You can ambush enemy ships around islands, out of or through smoke clouds, or by jumping on distracted enemies who are currently engaging other ships on your team. When going into torpedo mode by pressing 3, the game will give you a grey outline. This grey outline represents the torpedo trajectory that will hit your currently focused target if that target keeps moving at the same speed and bearing. If any changes to speed or bearing occur during the travel time, this grey zone is no longer accurate. This torpedo aim assist can be very helpful, but do not simply rely on it. If you are confident that you're close enough so that the enemy will not be able to alter his speed or trajectory, then by all means use the aim assist. If you are not entirely relying on these torpedoes to kill the target, by all means use the aim assist. But if any of these do not apply, you should not rely entirely on this assist. And more importantly, you should never fire all your available torpedo salvos unless you are 100% sure that they are all going to hit and that you need them to complete this kill. Always consider the opponent's options. When firing from a medium distance, the opponent has multiple ways of evading them. He can just slow down. If he's not at full speed, he can speed up. He can pull away from you, and he can pull into you. Use the terrain to your advantage. When coming around an island, he will not be able to pull in that direction because it would beach him on the island. If you limit the opponent's options, it will be much easier to predict where you have to fire your torpedoes. When firing your torpedoes from a medium range, for example in a Japanese destroyer, a general thing I like to do is fire one salvo of torpedoes with the aim assist and then fire another one slightly closer to the target, just in case he decides to slow down or he decides to turn into me. You should also mind your torpedo range. American destroyers only have between 4 and 6 kilometers torpedo range until way up in the high tiers. So when you are chasing someone, there's really no point in firing your torpedoes until you're like 2 kilometers away from them, because by the time your torpedoes will have reached him, he will have again traveled another few kilometers. So if you fire your torpedoes at 4 kilometers, by the time they reach him, they may have traveled 6 kilometers and disappear before they hit him. In the same vein, just because you're in a Japanese destroyer doesn't mean you have to fire all your torpedoes at 8 to 10 kilometers range. Japanese torpedoes are very slow, and as such sometimes it's better to go in close with them. Torpedoes are detected by ships they are traveling toward at different distances. This distance always correlates to about 10 to 20% of the torpedo's range. Torpedoes with 4.5 kilometer range are detected at about 600 meters. Torpedoes with 5.5 kilometer range are detected at about 750 meters. Torpedoes with 8 kilometers range are detected at 800 meters, and torpedoes with 10 or 20 kilometers range are detected at 2 kilometers distance. No matter how stealthy your torpedoes are, an enemy observing your ship, for example through sniper mode, will always be able to see the animation for you launching torpedoes, even if he can't see the torpedoes in the water. And that is all you need to start playing Successful Destroyer in World of Warships. If you enjoyed this guide, please consider liking and subscribing. And if there's any ships you would like me to review, or any other guides you would like to see me make, or if you just have any other plain old feedback, please leave it in the comments and I'll totally read it and reply. My next video will be a review on the Albany. But until then, I've been Eldritch, Master Donkey, and I'll see you in another video.